You guys are good to go.
Oh, great, thanks. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Supervisor Moore.
Here.
Councilwoman McNamara.
Present.
Councilman Iacilli.
Here.
Councilman Pell.
Present.
Councilman Martell.
Here.
Thank you. All right, let's start with the agenda review for Tuesday's board meeting. There's going to be 4 public hearings. The first to consider establishing a park district known as the East Quogue Park District in the hamlet of East Quogue, which is a continuation. The second public hearing is to consider the acquisition of an historic preservation conservation easement on property located at 149 South Country Road in the hamlet of Remsenburg, Spionk, and to amend the Community Preservation Project Plan and the CPF Management and Stewardship Plan to include said property. The third public hearing is to consider the acquisition of an historic preservation and conservation easement on property located at 11 Walnut Avenue in the hamlet of East Quogue, and to amend the Community Preservation Project Plan and the CPF Management and Stewardship Plan to include said property. And the fourth public hearing is to accept a deed of residential fee from Blair K. Gaza for a property to be maintained as open space located at West Hampton, Suffolk County Tax Map Number as indicated pursuant to Southampton Town Code Section 244-4, obtaining a development right certificate, and Section 247, General Municipal Law of the State of New York. All right, let's move forward with the resolutions.
Town Board Resolution 2025-970, co-sponsored with Council Members Martell and McNamara. Authorize the use of CHF funds for the development of 12 affordable housing units at the Preserve at South Country, Quogue.
Town Board Resolution ID 50691, accept Eagle Scout donation from John Cornahans.
Town Board Resolution 50603. Authorize purchase of a MRO maintenance repair operating facility grounds from the Worth USA using the Interlocal Purchase System TIPS contract.
Town Board Resolution ID number 50579 to authorize purchases of removal of toxic and hazardous waste materials from 192 Branch Interior Services using the Suffolk County contract. Town Board Resolution ID number 50650 to authorize the supervisor to enter into an agreement with A. Martin Petrovic, Professor of Horticulture, to review the 2025 operation and environmental impact of the Bridge Golf Course. Town Board Resolution ID number 50651 to authorize the supervisor to enter into an agreement with WSP USA, formerly Leggett, Brashears, and Graham, Inc., in connection with the 2025 groundwater monitoring and sampling services for the Bridge Golf Course. Town Board. Oh, yes, formerly, not formally. Thanks, Janice.
Okay.
Town Board Resolution ID number 50682 to authorize the supervisor to sign a 2025 agreement with the National Coalition Building Institute to provide employee, survey, and staff training. Town Board Resolution ID number 50619 to authorize the supervisor to sign a contract amendment with Historical Concepts for additional design and visioning services for the comprehensive implementation of the Riverside Overlay District zoning.
Town Board Resolution 50684, co-sponsored with Councilman Piazzolla. Authorize supervisor to sign contract with Cove Technology, Inc. for document restores.
Town Board Resolution ID number 50688, co-sponsored by Councilwoman McNamara, to authorize the supervisor to sign the documentation necessary to accept the New York State fiscal year 2022 Critical Infrastructure Grant Program for the Town of Southampton Police Department. Town Board Resolution ID number 50689, co-sponsored by Councilwoman McNamara, to authorize the supervisor to sign the documentation necessary to accept the Tactical Targeted Grant Program from Homeland Security and Emergency Services. Town Board Resolution ID number 50658, co-sponsored by the entire board, to award and authorize the supervisor to sign a contract with J. Malomo, Inc. for Southampton Animal Shelter sanitary system upgrade. Town Board Resolution ID number 50683, co-sponsored by Councilwoman McNamara, to award and authorize the purchase of one 2025 Ford F-250 Super Duty from Nielsen Ford of Morristown, Inc., using New York State OGS contract for vehicles class 1 through 8 statewide. And Town Board Resolution ID number 50685, co-sponsored by Councilman Iacilli, to award and authorize the purchase of one 2025 Ford F-250 Super Duty from Scorpio Motors LLC DBA Greenwich Ford, using New York State OGS contract for vehicles class 1 through 8 statewide. Town Board Resolution ID number 50695, to recall and amend Resolution number 2024-1162, to authorize the supervisor to sign a contract with Johnson Control Security Solutions for alarm system monitoring and maintenance at the David Crohan Community Center, 655 Flanders Road, Flanders, New York. And that's just to change the start date.
Town Board Resolution ID 50694, recall and amend Town Board Resolution 2025-710, authorizing the supervisor to execute a park and recreation agreement with R is Rugby LLC. I think it's supposed to be R is for Rugby, or maybe it is R is Rugby LLC, for surf camp instruction. Town Board Resolution ID 50690 is a resolution to adopt the Town of Southampton Large Whale Emergency Response Plan. This was done in conjunction with AMCs. This has been ongoing for a few years now. It's something that we worked on with the prior board, and I want to thank Ryan Murphy and Atlantic Marine Conservation Society, specifically Robert DiGiovanni, for working on this plan. It's really just a guide for our departments on how to respond and the best practices for response. It's also, they put together a list of equipment that can be used for strandings, and it documents the equipment we have since purchased, basically an excavator and other equipment we could get in the future. And Ryan I asked him to make a few small changes, and this will be forwarded to all of you for your review prior to our meeting on Tuesday.
I also like to include the trustees, because the trustees, it's on the 26 miles of the trustees right away, and the trustees had some input, and the maintenance crew is most likely the first one to respond.
Oh, they're all included in this bill.
Yeah, but you did not say, and you gave, if you're going to give credit, you have to give the credit to everyone. You can't forget about the trustees, excuse me.
Then I have to give credit to the highway department, the town engineer.
I did not interrupt you, and I appreciate you don't interrupt me, okay? I was just adding on to your things, what you were saying, okay? Thank you.
So
And the highway,
would you like
and the
it to say the town board and the town trustees have
Yes.
reviewed the plan?
yes, please. Thank you.
There's actually several town departments that have reviewed the plan. It was done in conjunction with the Bay Constables, with pretty much everybody that responds to these things. It even goes as far as to include the nation to be called for tribal ceremonies before any necropsy is done. It's
Is that in the plan?
plan? Yes. So it's a wide range of agencies that are
Yeah.
included.
Well, I know that there was a prior resolution adopting the proposal from them to do this large whale emergency response plan in 2023. So you're saying this is the final plan that they're presenting to us for
Yes.
adoption?
Yes.
All right, so
And
you
it's-
have, or
Yeah,
somebody
it'll
will
be
distribute
Ryan's
copies?
going to circulate to all of you. It has been circulated to all of the internal departments, including the trustees and the Bay Constables and the Town Highway Department and the engineer. They have all reviewed it, and they've all given their input, and they've all helped work on this plan and create it, and they're all included.
Thank you for that. I know you worked very hard on this.
So we'll have it in time to review it before the board
You should
meeting?
have it by the end of the day today.
Oh, okay. All right, good.
It's really, it's 8 pages. It's not a, it's not a lot to read.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, because I know there was an incident with a whale last year, and everybody was scrambling to, what do we do? Who goes first? What
Yeah.
about the nation?
It's
And
been,
so it's nice to finally have something.
it's been ongoing for the last
Yeah.
15 years.
Town Board Resolution ID number 50663, notice, 2025 notice to bidders for public safety building demolition. Town Board Resolution ID number 50699 to amend the 2025 budget for various departments.
Town Board Resolution 50697, co-sponsored with Councilman Martell. Authorize first-time homebuyers down payment assistance funding from the Community Housing Fund. So I presume this is allocating another 1.25.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. That's great.
This is 22,000 for an actual.
Oh, this is for an identified application, right, Rick?
Jason Krasuski and Kimberly Mangle.
Congratulations.
Could I please be added to this?
Yeah, why don't you add the whole board?
Got
That's great. This is the second one, I think, or maybe.
I think it might be 2 or 3.
Wait, I'm just trying to remember something. Okay. Town Board Resolution ID number 50700, co-sponsored by Council Members Pell, McNamara, and Iacilli, and Martell, to authorize funding for rebates for IA systems from the 2025 Community Preservation Fund water quality monies and amend the 2025 capital budget. Well, I guess I could talk to Jackie about it. We usually do $3 million a year. I don't know if this is $2 million on top of the $3 million, or this is to bring it up to the $3 million. Does anybody know?
I think this is to bring it up to 3 million, but I'm not quite sure because we talked about it in exec a couple weeks ago.
All right, we'll just check with her when she comes in today. Town Board Resolution ID number 50604 to authorize the town attorney to accept payment from USAA Insurance Company for damage to a Southampton Town Highway Department vehicle.
Town Board Resolution ID 50659, authorize waiver of Parks and Recreation Facility use fee for the Hampton Bays Lions Club 14th Annual Over the Bridge 10K Run and 5K Run Walk on September 13th, 2025.
Be added to that, please.
Town Board Resolution ID number 50681, co-sponsored by Councilwoman McNamara, the resolution authorizing the acceptance of a maintenance bond for the Atlantic Hall staff housing. Town Board Resolution ID number 50605 to accept the resignation of Brandon Kelly, Senior Park Attendant in the Parks and Recreation Department. Town Board Resolution ID number 50581 to appoint Allison Palmore to Administrative Assistant in the Town Attorney's Office. Congratulations, Jim.
Yes. Looking
Town
forward to
Board
it.
Resolution ID number 50675 to appoint a hearing officer.
Sunday, if you don't mind adding me to Town Board ID 50581, please, on page 27.
So,
Thank you.
say, I'm sorry, 50581
Yeah, for Allison.
for Allison.
Town Board Resolution 50656, authorize the sole assessor to attend the New York State 2025 Annual Conference. I think Councilman Martell should be on that resolution.
Please.
For the
Thank you.
conference.
Yep. 656.
Got it.
Town Board Resolution ID number 50672 to terminate a driver messenger in the Housing and Community Development Department.
Town Board Resolution 50606, notice of public hearing to consider amending noise exceptions to allow the use, to allow for use of small speakers outdoors. This was part of the discussions from our last work session where we were considering amending the noise code as it pertained to construction, noise produced from construction, but this was part of the discussion as well to allow for some relief in certain areas. I know this had been an ongoing discussion.
But this is just limited to the small speakers outside?
Yeah,
But
correct.
we're-
what were you gonna say?
No, just if we're gonna, continue to work on the section, do we want to do it piecemeal? Because
Right.
every
It's a
time
good
we
question.
send it up, we have to pay to have the code
But
revised.
I think that we had talked about not doing it in the noise code and doing it in the building code.
So what's the status on that? Because I know that you were going to ask some questions with building, and I don't know if that.
I think that Sean Cambridge had sent us some ideas,
Okay.
and that has to get,
Okay. So we should
talked
flesh
about.
that out.
But you think it's not gonna be, we wouldn't have to update the noise code again?
No, because it was going to go into the building, it was going to go into the building
Building the
code.
permitting process, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
I'd like to revisit that, Maria. I think it's a good point. I think, if we could try to make sure that that's on schedule for an additional work session at our next work session to discuss the issue of the noise. If we're going that route, I'd like to make sure that we have that on schedule as soon as
Might not be
possible.
ready for our next.
Not our next work session?
It's gonna take a little longer than that, so it might be a couple weeks.
Yeah, but we'll do it, for sure. Okay, Town Board Resolution ID number 50704, notice of public hearing to consider the acquisition of 3841 Lake Avenue in the hamlet of Northampton, New York, and to amend the CPF priority plan and the CPF management and stewardship plan to include the property. And that public hearing will be on for September 9th, and that is the abandoned gas station up by Wildwood, so that'll be nice
That'll be
to
very good
move
for the
forward with that, yeah.
Yes, been waiting for that one.
Town Board Resolution ID number 50573 to accept a deed of residual fee from Blair K. Gaza for property located at West Hampton, Suffolk County tax map number as indicated, to be maintained as open space pursuant to Section 247 General Municipal Law of the State of New York and pursuant to Southampton Town Code 244-4, obtaining a development rights certificate.
Town Board Resolution 50692, co-sponsored with Councilman Martell, authorize the use of CHF funds for the acquisition of 3 lots located at 47 Flanders Road, Riverside, for affordable housing apartment units.
Kara, I don't know if she spoke with everybody, but she called me yesterday.
called me
And she
yesterday
said
as well,
we have to table this one because there's some, just some things that have to get worked out.
Are we withdrawing it or are we tabling?
Just table.
Okay.
There's something about this demolition.
So you're tabling
Yes.
Table it, but can you add me to it too?
to the next meeting?
You want to the next meeting, Michael?
Hmm?
How long do you want
In
to
this
table?
resolution.
No, we're gonna keep it on. We're just tabling it at the meeting. We can keep
But
it on the
table
agenda.
For the following meeting, or was there a particular date?
I'm
to
sorry,
table it
we're
to?
talking
Did
about
she
the-
indicate
Yeah, the
how much?
following meeting, I think, 2 weeks.
Do we want to,
Where are you?
Maria,
The three
do we
lots.
want to,
Okay.
instead of tabling it, do we want to
We'll
just
be
withdraw
tabling
it
at
and
the
put it
meeting.
on that agenda?
Who am I?
I would rather just table it.
Can
That's
she
what,
make some changes?
I would rather just table it because Kara did request that we table it.
All right. And when she makes changes, we can always
We could always do that if there are
withdraw
substantive
it.
changes.
Town Board Resolution ID number 50652, road review application for 3 Spring Lane LLC, Suffolk County tax map number as indicated, situated at Sag Harbor, is accepted. And then there's one walk-on,
Add-on.
add-on.
It is Town Board Resolution ID 50707, co-sponsored with Supervisor Moore. It's to establish the park district known as the East Quogue Park District. We are putting this on the agenda. There is still another public hearing, but there was no negative feedback at the first public hearing. If there is, if it goes forward at this public hearing and there is no, negative feedback once again, then we can adopt it. I know they're anxious to get that done.
Yeah, seems like full support, so. All right, good. Well, then we're a few minutes early, but the next topic is to hear from Janice Shear, our Town Planning and Development Administrator, about the thoughts that she had on the Housing Code Amendment. It was in there, yeah. It's the first one,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I think.
You're right. Thank you.
Christine pointed out to me that it says they need the funding committee.
And then as you answer those questions, it goes through.
Kevin, can you come in here and help us turn on the screens? We have a PowerPoint. Hey, Curtis.
Hey Curtis, hey Kara. How are you guys doing today?
I think we have to schedule something for you soon. Okay. Sorry, I know your policy, so. Yep. How you doing? No glasses.
Not today. I left him in the car, so it was too late. I couldn't run back.
How are you? You know Kathy passed away.
Yeah.
Yes.
Our services are today. So,
Pretty sad.
yeah, big hole in our, we're all feeling it now. Yeah.
Sorry.
It's okay. Yes. I felt bad for Jamie.
Yeah.
I talked to him for 2 hours pretty much every day. He's just, it's like, what am I gonna do now? I don't even know how to pay the mortgage. It's amazing what,
How do I, slideshow. How do I get, am I in the slideshow view? Let me turn, I also had asked Claire to just come at some point up to talk about, the current planning process. Hi. Thanks for having me. Thank you so much.
Hey Claire.
Oh, hey. How are you?
Good.
I asked for,
Here.
I got
Yes.
Kara back, Claire Shea, Sheriff, Town Planning and Development Administrator. It's nice to be back before you. Threw together another PowerPoint just to keep us on track. But today we're talking about affordable housing and some immediate steps. I'm sorry, and Curtis Highsmith, of course, our housing director. Immediate steps that we can take, because oftentimes what happens is everyone comes to us and goes, how do I do this? How can I, wait a minute, we want to buy this property and the community housing fund can do it, but how do we accomplish these things? And so we've been looking at the code, and
We can do it.
we can't do it all at once, but we can make significant progress and steps in ways, in different ways, by looking at how you can fix the code based on your goals and objectives in the comp plan, in the housing plan, and things along those lines. So today we're just talking about one of these potential ideas. So that is, we all know that affordable housing designed to fit in with the character of the town is necessary. This is obvious, but
I think that's very important to the character of the town and the character of the neighborhood.
yeah.
Because you don't want to put 100 in one spot.
Exactly.
You want to have mixed use in the, mixed ages, mixed use, and protect the seniors and also help the working force and affordable housing.
Exactly. And so this just reiterates these objectives that have been expressed, which is we want to help our seniors stay here on a fixed income, retaining our workforce for local businesses. That helps property taxes when you have businesses that thrive here. We want housing for emergency service providers, people who work in the emergency room, people who are, firefighting, police, other essential workers, alleviating those commute times, which is a big traffic burden, and that would help not only the person who's so stressed out driving 3 hours a day, but the people in our neighborhoods who are also burdened by all this traffic, and creating opportunities for future generations. So we all pay a significant amount of money to educate children, and then they leave. So they should have an opportunity to maybe have something in the place they grow up in without having to be a multimillionaire. So right now we have a few different town code provisions that address affordable housing. So we talked about floating zones last time I was here, affordable housing overlay, senior citizen zone, multifamily, and MFPRD. And then there's density incentives, which are another section of the code, but they all sort of miss the mark when we're talking about smaller scale residential. So these are all things that address larger scale. And when we were looking through these codes, the multifamily PRD, that last one, does have a provision about small scale, but it's like the way that it's written is in the MFPRD, which is a floating cluster zone. So you would need a zone change to get that. But then in there, it starts talking about 20 units or less as a special exception in the planning board. So it's like misplaced.
So people understand it. They want to, what is the number for a small scale?
20 units or less.
And what's the scale, what's the numbers for a large unit?
Well, we're talking about, so when we say the words multifamily, that's another thing that is not closely defined. For lending purposes, multifamily is usually 5 or more units in a building.
Okay.
We're talking about up to 4 units potentially in something that looks like exactly like a single family home.
Okay.
So the housing plan that was recently adopted and then the addendum and the funding that you've approved, that has different recommendations. And so recommendation 3A, 3B, and 5B are the ones that we're looking at today. And they say encourage middle market housing, which, I'm always waving around my book, Missing Middle Housing. 3B, review site plan and dimensional regulations in light of these preferred housing types, because our code and what you want do not match. And 5B, introduce single family or house scale development that is affordable by design. And so then it says here, new house scale construction can provide an affordable option through the development of 2, 3, or 4 plexes that are designed to look like single family homes. So that means we would start to look at this like if you're doing 20 units or less, you would design it potentially either as like a cottage setup or just a single family home so it looks like a regular neighborhood. And then if you're doing 5 units or more in larger buildings, you get into more of the overlay districts and the zoning amendments, right? And those would result in presumably more than 20 units on a given site.
It's kind of like what he's doing in Hampton Bays with the senior,
Yes,
Yes.
right,
which looks very nice and
exactly.
yeah, and it's very good for the neighborhood.
So this is we've said this is what we want, but we don't have a code that really provides that path to get there in an easy way. Now, I'm not saying, oh my God, everybody should have 20 units everywhere, right? That would not be what we're talking about. We are very specific about, so we would take that little section out of where it already lives in an overlay zone when it doesn't make sense, and make it its own special exceptions section and standards. And then I do have these for you. Just take a look at, because it's hard to see on there, if you don't mind handing those around. This is an overview of our hamlet centers.
Please take one and pass
You
it
can
down.
see the rings around each area. The outer ring is a mile, then it goes a quarter mile. No, a mile, a half mile, a quarter mile, 500 feet.
Same as-
And you notice all the green in between are all preserved lands. So we're not talking about sprawling all across our town. We're talking about keeping them on properties, I would recommend at least 2 acres in size. So, and that is smart growth, right? So you don't want to sprawl your development everywhere. You want to put it where it belongs
The hamlet centers.
or in close proximity to. So this is just principles of smart growth, define your public spaces.
Can we just, I think it's important that we kind of elaborate on that. Sometimes people hear that, they don't really understand what why. And from a planning perspective, planners study this very much so, right? This is about living where you work, right? That's really the goal here, is to provide not only housing opportunities, but job opportunities for economic growth. So when we talk about smart growth, I think for the public's edification, I think it's important just that's emphasized. It's not that it's aimed at increasing density. It's really just a way in which you organize where certain clusters of housing goes based on the economic distribution that is already placed within the community.
Absolutely, and also you'll notice, if I could just use your map for a second, on this map, the only eligible parcels are yellow without a little stripe through them. So there's not even that really many that this would work on, actually. So it's not like, oh, there's going to be a million of these.
I don't know what you mean, yellow without a stripe through
Well,
it.
this is
Like
very
this,
microscopic,
like, yeah.
but the yellow
Yellow
indicates parcels 2 to 5 acres in size, and the hatched areas are developed. So you'd have to find a yellow parcel, a parcel greater, 2 acres or greater in order to even sort of do this.
What are these little black ones? Is that for downtowns?
Yeah, those are commercial districts. No, we're not talking about that either. So we're just talking about where could you even land these, and there's not like there's going to be that many of them, but there may be some, and we've identified a few through our CHF purchases that make sense. But usually the concern is there's going to be a onslaught of, if you did 4 units in something that looked like a single family home, you'd only get 5 buildings, 5 homes with 4 equals 20. So we're not talking about big multifamily projects here. We're talking about the potential for 5 what would look like single family homes with 4 units within them.
Now,
right?
if we were to establish that, how would that work out with like down the line in the future with respect to like the ZBA? Because I think about certain communities, for instance, in Noyak, right, where working class, many of which are bungalows, yet you have people making renovations to their homes, and now it's really kind of building beyond the character of the community. How would what we're looking at address that down the line?
The other side of that is that you could do some cottage style development, and that would save these communities or save the traditional look and feel of, often people talk about places like in Noyak or, in certain areas in East Hampton, like a fisherman's cottage and those kinds of areas that are part of the sort of character of certain areas, and the character is great because it is small and cute.
Mm-hmm.
And so this would allow, if you didn't do let's say you could do 2, 3, or 4 units in a structure, up to 4, or you could do like a cottage style development, which I'll get to. I just like something like this, or something like this, or that. These cute, smaller layouts.
Yeah, but if you're talking about 2 acres, how many could you
You
fit?
can only get up to 20. You're in this
20 houses?
No,
20
5.
cottages.
20
cottages
on
on
2
5 houses.
acres?
Yeah, that's not a lot. 20 cottages on 2 acres.
Probably like 1-bedroom cottage.
So here's also something I wanted to hand out. This is more on the AHOD side or on the larger side, but this is our, what happened with Sandy Hollow and how we did this proof of concept. And that was 28 in a more multifamily. So that's not exactly what I'm talking about here, but the idea was that it's possible and it worked and everybody thinks it looks good, I think. And so we're talking about another idea along these same lines, but even more single family oriented.
So what about some of these properties on here that I'm noticing, like some of them are in the APOD, some of them are in the ag reserves, like not the ag reserves, the ag overlay district.
That would not be eligible.
Nothing in the APOD or the ag overlay district would be eligible?
No, well, APOD is a clearing restriction.
Yeah.
Ag districts are at farmland, so no.
But
the
still-
idea is to preserve farmland, not do anything there. But so that's what I'm saying. There's not like an overwhelming amount of areas that are eligible.
So I guess my question is, if you have a 3-acre parcel that's 5-acre zoning, you would be still eligible for this?
If it was in a mile of a hamlet center.
Even if it's in the APOD? Because I mean, you're gonna have to clear, you're still gonna have to stay within the clearing limits too?
The zoning would be the 5-acre zoning would be an infamous, this would be CR60 or less we're
Okay.
suggesting.
Yes.
And that lines up with being close to your hamlet centers.
Right.
The 5-acre zoning is beyond the acre usually.
Right.
The
5-acre
mile.
zoning is within the farmland areas or up
Yeah.
on the marine.
Okay.
So, this is all a matter of scale, right? Like, so people get afraid, like, oh my God, it's 10 units per acre, or, but when you're dealing with a site that's 2 acres and you're condensing units into something that looks like a single family home and maybe there's only 5 of them there. I mean, if you don't want big complexes and you also have issues with the accessory apartments with the development rights, lack of thereof for certain. So like, how are you going to, we're trying to bring creative ideas to how to accomplish these things in fairly short order.
But when there's the cottages, exactly how many square foot is the cottage?
A cottage is
Would
like
be
1,000 square feet,
Would be 1 bedroom?
One or two.
So can you compare that? So if I have a 2-acre piece of property and I build one home on it, what's the biggest square footage I could put on that property?
15,000.
So if they were 1,000 square foot units, it would be 15 units on that property. So we're trying
Go
to.
over 15,000. It's just a special exception at that point. But
15.
as of right, it's 15.
Yeah.
But you could build a 20,000 square foot
And
home.
the 15,000 would have probably roughly 8 bedrooms, 6
That's
bedrooms,
usually on a 5-acre piece. It's
Yeah.
a big house like that.
and 10 bathrooms.
I mean, this is kind of what we were talking about when we were originally talking about the CHF plan, and that was that, like the Sandy Hollow is a perfect example of that front piece. That's smaller than some single-family homes in this town. So if you can keep them to look like that, but you could put 4 or 5 apartments in them, you're still not changing the character of the community because those houses are being built every day.
Right. So when we're only talking about limiting them to 4 per
Mhm.
structure.
Which is fair.
Or do the cottage model. So it's one or the other. As a special
So-
exception, the planning board would ensure that it looked and felt like a neighborhood. And I don't think it would have any impact at 20
I
units.
think that would scare a lot of people. If you say 20 units, and it could be 2-bedroom units, I think that it should be scaled down some. If you're gonna have 20 units, might be, so many 2 bedrooms, so many 1 bedrooms, and maybe studio. Because if you have, in my mind, when you have 20 cottages on one acre or
It's
2
2 acres.
2 acres, it seems, to the neighborhood, that's a lot.
Yeah.
A lot, and,
If you
I mean, it could be fine, don't get me wrong, but in my mind, it seems like, you're gonna scare people in the neighborhood.
So you already have 20
Yeah.
in the code. It's just under a weird section.
Section,
So we're
yeah.
saying, put it in a different section where someone can make that application and people can come out and talk to the planning board.
Well, wait, I don't understand. If you said it's already in the code,
It's under a zone change provision,
Yeah.
and we're saying, take it out of the zoning change.
I thought there was something that if it's 20 or less, you don't need the zone change.
It says that in a zone change section, so it doesn't make any sense. That's what we're suggesting. It needs to be pulled out of there and put on to stand on its own. Otherwise, you're still in a zone change. In a zone change section, it says 20 units or less as a special exception. Then you go to that special exception and it says X. So it doesn't make sense. So we're saying if this was already contemplated by a prior board, placed in a section that doesn't make sense, take it out of that section and make it make sense and make it compatible with the neighborhood within a certain proximity to a downtown, not having traffic impacts, designed in a way that it won't hurt anyone. And you're chipping away. You've said you don't want these big 50 units, 100 unit. So we're saying 20, now that's even a lot. Like, I mean,
I agree with Bill on this. I think if you're saying 20 cottages on 2 acres, that's a lot of density, and to have that go to the planning board as a special exception and not come to this board and be subject to the traffic studies and the school impacts and.
it would still be subject to all that, but yes.
There is a limitation too. We're talking about 20% coverage. So that is going to prevent 20 cottages on the face of it.
I err on the side of not putting things like this before the planning board because they are controversial and they're not elected officials and they're going to take the heat for all of these things that should be coming to us.
So do you want to then, if you don't want to do that, change the affordable housing overlay and make it so that you're placing these things on each one is a zone change application?
Or you could have a special exception to the town board.
Yeah, or
I think either way.
Smaller ones.
But that's like a conditional use permit. We don't do special, I mean, that's a bit of a change. You could do special exception, but.
yeah, how about if you do it like, instead of doing 20, you might say 10, that if you want more, you have to come, or 5, you have to.
So you have to understand there's also there's no, and Curtis can speak to this and Kara, there's an economy of scale here. Like no one's gonna do just 10 maybe without your subsidy. And then you're saying you have to do a zone change on top of that.
But we are willing to
Like
subsidize these projects.
Curtis's project with the senior.
I'm open to however you want to handle this. I'm trying to figure out how do you want to do
So
it?
I'd like
From a
to,
developer's
just, if I
point-
could, pass out a little analysis that I did, all right? So we have, right now, 5 properties that have been assisted with the Community Housing Fund that right now need some sort of zoning. These are all small-scale projects of 20 units or less, and we're seeking to do this. So I think it's important to remember for this board is, okay, we're talking about, I would actually go a little bit smaller than the 2 acres because we have several of these properties that are just under that 2 acre limit. So if you're looking at, just under 2 acres, 10 units per acre, must be located within 1 mile of a hamlet center, must be affordable in perpetuity, and can never have more than 20 units on that lot. You're looking at all of the properties that we've worked with the Community Housing Fund on. So I'd like to just kind of pass this out to the board if I.
I'm fine with streamlining the process. I just think it should stay before this board.
That's fine.
So-
I'm trying to get direction from
But
you.
As part of, especially when the community housing fund is involved, as part of the administrative process to get approved for funding, cannot be in the beginning of the administrative process for approving the zoning. Because it seems like we're coming to the board twice. We're coming to the board
Right.
for the
And
funding,
then you're going to go to the
and then I
planning
come back
board.
before the board.
And then the planning board. It's going to go to the planning board either way.
But here's the caveat to
Well,
that,
eventually,
Curtis. You
yeah.
come to us and we say, this sounds like a great plan. We want to do this project and we are going to fund it. And then we're sending it to the planning board and the planning board's going to say, we don't like this project. We want you to meet X, Y, and Z, which changes your funding options, which could derail the whole plan. At least you're coming before the board that we're basically putting our money where our mouth is and saying, yes, we're gonna not only are we gonna see this forward, we are going to help you fund it.
One-stop shop.
But if you develop the standards for the planning board, then they have a chance to look at those standards and bring a project to fund that will meet those standards.
Start with the planning board versus the town board for the funding?
No. I'm just saying, if you have special exception standards, and you could do it as a zone change. But I'm saying or you could do it as this board does a conditional use permit or something.
If
along
we
those
could do a
lines.
special exception with this board, I would be fine with that, but I think that these things have to stay with this board. When we're increasing density like this, I think it has to stay with this board. I don't think it's something that we should pass off to the
So
planning
then
board and
maybe
make
what
them
we
deal with
do
it.
instead of this special exception thing is we go to the affordable housing overlay district, and each and every time you want to fund a project, you land that affordable housing overlay
Fine
on
with
it.
that.
So then we could do that, and then each and every time you're saying, well, okay, you want funding, you wanna do this project, you have a public hearing for affordable housing overlay.
Yeah.
And then you would land it,
With the funding.
fund it, and then they go to the planning board for site plan.
Could I just say, I'd like to just impart some thoughts here on the last time you came to us, Janice. You spoke to us about the function of overlays, and we looked at some specific areas in which certain plans we are saying we would prefer they come to the board before they go. Now we're talking about this coming before the board, before planning. I just want to caution, this board is now taking on a much more, and maybe that's fine, I don't know, and maybe that's what this board wants to do, but it's now taking on more of a planning-oriented role, and I think that's fine if that's what we want to do, but I just want to make it clear that we're now taking on a much more planning board facilitating the planning board's role in sort of deciphering what goes where and the scope of those projects. And
That's already.
When you go to fund a project, you have a public hearing, and I'm suggesting now that coupled with that public hearing is this affordable housing overlay district, so that
People can weigh on it all at one
all
time.
at once. So it's a combined public hearing, funding and affordable housing overlay happen, let's say in the positive. It could be negative and you don't want to do it, but it could be in the positive. The time you fund it, you are also landing that district. So they don't have to come back and do a
Keep on coming
whole
back.
zone change again.
Because to Kara's
That's
point, there's
crazy.
3 of these 5 wouldn't make it to the special exception phase anyway because they're under 2 acres.
True. So then what are your parameters for the AHOD would be then what we would turn to and say, what is it that?
You have to
Fine.
you have
We
to have good
all the-
specific
let's go back to
conditions.
that slide. Let me go to the last slide. Here. So here's our zones, and there's density incentives, and density incentives are sort of, only 338 comes to you. 330-9 is carriage houses, subdivisions, and those are also not really conducive to affordability, by the way. You have to have like 10 acres to get, and it's a lot of that. But the first one on this floating zone list is the affordable housing overlay district, which I told you last time we talked about floating zones. They're only, they don't have anything to it that anybody would avail themselves to it. So we can then come back with that. If that's your directive, we can take a look at that, fix that, and do it in the way that, we're just trying to find an easier path so that these things actually happen.
These are
Lots of money toward them, but they can't come to fruition because
And
there's
do you
no
think,
path forward.
and you're of the opinion that putting it before this board is going to make these things happen faster?
I am not, but I think you have that ability. You are in charge.
I would say that's not the case. When things come before us, whether it's a public hearing, they get tossed around in a whole host of different arguments, whether it's for, against, and other different perspectives that totally, in my opinion, derail. If there's a vision, if there's an agenda, that could more easily, in my view, be tossed out and slow down a project more than anything.
So even the 5 projects that we
I just think we're looking at potentially usurping responsibilities of the planning board that the planning board is responsible for.
I would still do the site plan. What you're saying is qualifies not only for funding, but for the density that they're proposing, and we're going to land that district, and we're going to set up
The
the
funding,
zoning
I
that each one
understand.
requires
The
at the time you do it.
Why would we fund the project if it's not
We're not gonna
possible
land it.
to build it? I mean, are we saying that these 4 or 5 projects that we funded and we purchased the property can't actually accommodate the housing that was proposed?
Not without variances from their original codes, because those original codes or zone changes. those original codes are just for one single-family dwelling, and
So-
you're proposing extra
So real
units.
world scenario, something we just dealt with, the Easterner, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
Curtis went to the community, pitched it to the community, they gave their support, came to this board for funding, we funded it. Now that public hearing could have been both to give the funding and also to land this zone.
Yes.
And it would be done, and then it would go to the planning board for site plan.
That's what we would like to
But
have.
what has
aspects
happened,
of
what
that
has in
process.
fact happened with it?
There.
So what was the question?
What exactly, what's the process now for you?
What did
That-
happen? We
Well,
approved the funding
You
and then.
approved the funding to keep it
It's like
affordable senior.
pre-existing non-conforming.
You said that we would do 600 square foot units, 10 units, keeping one of the original cottages there, but it would require a zoning change. And we said you would support the zoning change.
Right, so now you have to change the zone because that's not.
Which we could have just landed
Which
this
we would
zone.
have landed at the point of-
So where's the change of zone application?
It's coming.
For
Yeah,
all
well,
of these.
we're waiting to see if there's
We
a
wanted to try to figure
streamlined
out a
process.
pathway
for
that makes sense. Let's streamline it, make it make sense. This is like now they're gonna be engaged in a zone change, which is another
So that's
year
cost,
long.
that's expense, that's time. All of this is carrying some form of debt.
For something that we know has community support already.
Exactly. Again, even the 5 projects we have listed here, none of them are anywhere close to double density. So we're really talking about marginal and very small projects. This shouldn't come before you because it really is not a public nuisance or an issue or any backlash from the community.
We're not funding it without community support.
Correct.
And so the community support and the funding comes with this affordable housing overlay. Maybe that's, this section of the code is not used. So like.
And then it
you
goes
can
to the
take
planning
this
board for
as,
site
like
plan.
your thing that works out the process and figures out like, well, what do they need here? And give it to them at the time and then fund it all at one stop shop, assuming there's support for it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and some of these projects that are on this list have not been funded, and they haven't been funded yet because we have this issue. So,
It's kind of at like an impasse, like we don't know what to do and what
You
you
have
want to
zoning
do.
and you have health department too.
Well,
These
but
are all
like
gonna
the
require help
90
on it.
North C Mecox.
100%. 100%.
90 North C Mecox, that was funded, right?
No.
no, and neither was the Sandy Hollow.
Sandy Hollow Part 2.
Part two.
Yeah.
Well, that's
but 90 North C, you just needed a variance, right? A variance?
Yes, the rear yard setback is like 50 feet, but you've got a cottage setup that doesn't match the rear yard for like a single family home, so when you're dealing with a certain prototype, those should have their own sort of setbacks, which we can add to this AHOD, so that it's clear, it's zoned, it's not like you're just making up it each time, we
And I
can
don't
make it
think-
very specific.
I think when the community came out for those public hearings for the funding, I think they think that once we fund it, it's done anyway. I mean, I don't think they're looking for another public hearing for zone changes. I think they feel like once the town funds something, it's pretty much done because why would we fund something that we don't support actually being built?
Let's be true, let's be also very transparent. People hear zoning change and they immediately come to a reaction feeling with regards to the process. No one likes to hear a zoning change. And so when we're equating even the process of funding to giving the overlay or even the directive for us to build these, I think the community feels more supportive rather than, oh, now you're going to do a zoning change. It's going to be a bait and switch. Instead of being 9 units, it's going to be 12 or 15 or 20.
Well, that's where that affordable housing overlay should come with your funding, so you know you're landing it, you know what the parameters are, and it's, because it would be so nice and neat and tidy if everything fit the way the zoning fit, but the truth is the zoning is not conducive to what you need to have happen here, and that's why we're in this predicament in the first place. So.
I mean,
If we
we're,
don't do something about it, then we're just keep spinning our wheels. We're not getting anywhere.
I think it's an important point that we are talking about small projects. All of these projects will be 20 units or less. All right, so, and it's fortunate that now we have the CHF funds so that these projects can happen, because without those CHF funds, you could never do small projects like this. Because remember, the management fees are the same, whether you're doing 10 units or whether you're doing, 50 units. You still have all the expenses and things that go along with a project. So we're very fortunate that we have the funds at this point in time to be able to do these. And I think that, when you're doing smaller smaller projects, some of the concerns that go along with some of these bigger projects are not there. You're not going to have a lot of kids all at once going into the school district. You're not going to have, issues
Influx of
with,
the neighborhood.
with police, and fire and things like that. All of those things are different when we're talking about small projects. And if you look at all of the projects that are being done with CHF now, we're talking about small number of unit projects. And we need to come to some way. I mean, these things can't be done on, the acreage that is required. We can't make them affordable. And so we have to do something about the zoning to make the lots smaller so that we can have affordable units for the community. We're talking about the sustainability of our community here. If we're losing our young people and we're losing the people that help sustain our community, teachers, hospital workers, fire, EMS, we're not going to continue with a sustainable community. And so we need to do something about that.
Well, I don't, I'm concerned that when these were pitched to us and we provided the funding, and then you come back and say, but we can't really build it there. Hey, this is a great project and this is what it'll look like, and will you give us the funding? And we say yes, and we provide the funding, and then it's like, well, we didn't mention that you can only have a 10-foot setback, and now we need a variance. I mean, I just feel like we didn't.
Well, at least for my
know
project, so
that.
I'm only going to speak for mine. I've always explained to you what the process would be to get the zoning. It was asked during the request for funding that a zoning change was going to be necessary. What those zoning changes were going to be, whether it's pre-existing non-conforming to non-conforming use, whether using the hotel special exception. We've always been very transparent that no affordable housing units in Southampton can be created without some type of variance or some type of exception. That's just flat out what is the current process. So not that we can't and there's no pathway to do it now, because there is. We can go and do a zoning change. We can go and try to get the pre-existing non-conforming to non-conforming use.
What if the zoning board were to say, we don't want to cut the setback from 50 feet down to 10 or whatever it is you need? Then you can't do it.
Then you reduce the number of units.
But
So
the problem
one
is
of the
that
things you
you're in
took out of
charge
Then
of
we
the zoning.
funded, for 13 units, and we thought that's what it was going to be, but it can't be that.
Remember, we didn't fund that project yet.
Yeah.
So there are a couple on this list that haven't been funded.
Because
Sandy
of the
Hollow,
zoning.
right, because of this zoning issue. Sandy Hollow and the one you're speaking about right now has not been funded. Watermill, we thought that there was a pathway without going through the zoning process, but I think that the Department of Land Management feels more comfortable going through this process. Really, the only one on here is the Easterner Motel, which, I think Curtis at the time, we did discuss with the board that we would have to go through this process. So we're just talking about a pathway to get these projects done
Quicker.
now, quickly.
But that
Yeah.
request to consider the zone change could have come in at the same time as the request for funding for the Easterner. I'm just not sure where it was.
Yeah.
We should-
We said we were going to give you the funding, but then no, we haven't gotten the request for the zone change. But, we of course would do that because we talked about it. That's what we wanted to go there, senior
But- sorry.
housing.
You were under a time crunch to close on that
Yeah,
property.
I was under for multiple projects we're talking about. So the Eastern, we're under a time crunch to fund to get the property because there were other offers on the table. 90 North C Mecox, I did go in and we did have a pre-application for that project itself. And that's when it was determined what we were going to do is a 6-lot subdivision. Then we were going to do single-family homes, accessory apartments, and there were so many different renditions of that project, which the community helped us come to what our current proposal is. But with all that said, we did come before this board to ask for the zoning ahead of time, beforehand, and then said, well, let's make sure that we can acquire the property, we can pay for all of the necessary expenses that are going to take place before we actually go through the zoning. There's a risk, and I'll say this. The same amount of work for us to request or come before you for a zoning change for 50 units, same amount that I'm going to have to ask for 9 homes. That doesn't seem to be fair. We're talking about 9 homes which are on one of the projects, which is only 2 or 3 units more than with as of right. Should that come before the board as administrative process? Or should there be a pathway for us where it doesn't become a community issue, go right through the planning and let the planning department dictate what the layout would be?
Yeah, we're talking about small scale, so you should keep your, whatever you want to do.
And if you want to roll this
but-
out, that it be a not-for-profit development corporation be the one to, or a housing authority be the one and the only agency that can take advantage of it, just upfront now, and see how that process works. Because I think the concerns are who else comes through this door and asks for the same consideration, and now you have multiple applications for large projects.
Well, that was my concern about the process, as I referenced earlier. But I understand the need as it pertains to these specific projects.
But also it should be a level playing field for anyone who wants to do this, right? So if someone wants to, they have a piece of property that's been in their family and they want to develop, they feel, we've had many people come forward and say, I feel strongly about providing affordable housing. I've lived, my parents owned this since 1945 and they wanted to do something on it. So I just am saying that if, as long as it's fair and level playing field and people can come in and you can say, we'll support that with affordable housing, and you set up the density that you and the community feel comfortable with, and we can work out whatever there, because the thing is, you're the legislative board, and then you say, well, you have to go get a variance. Why wouldn't you just set up whatever is necessary? You have all the power to zone. You don't need to send somebody to the ZBA.
I also don't want people going to, say, the planning board and saying, well, we're allowed up to 20 units. I want it to be this board because we can say, not on this piece and not in this location and not based on community concerns.
You can also do that with the funding. So if you have an applicant that's coming for CHF funding, you can say, as this board, we are only going to fund it if it's not 20 units, if it's only 10 units. And then you can increase the funding, CHF funding to help that.
But to Janice's point, if this exists as a special exception and they're just going to the planning board for up to 20 units and they're not coming to us for funding, then that's out of our hands. And then we also then have to answer to the public of how did these 20 cottages on 2 acres get it into our neighborhood and it doesn't fit the scale of the community at all? Well, it was a special exception and it's an allowable thing.
Realistically, a developer is not going to be able to do this without some
Maybe not assistance from us, but maybe they get their assistance outside of this town. So I don't.
We have no objection to you keeping your control over it. It's not a problem. We're just trying to figure out a way to make this actually happen.
But how are we, I'm missing something here. How do we avoid having to do a zone change? We still have to do the zone change, right?
Well, I just laid it out, but you guys are not interested.
We ran the overlay district when we give them
When you
funding.
do the funding, yeah.
And if they're not asking for funding, they just come in for the overlay district.
Well, either way,
Or
but
change
yeah.
the zone.
It's always a zone change.
Okay.
So I thought you liked the 20 unit or less idea without coming here, so we developed this idea.
Yeah, we do.
Throw that out. No, you
No,
don't, because you
some of
wanted
it's
to come
good.
to you first.
Don't throw it out yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, some of
I'm
it's
getting
good.
confused as to which way we're headed here.
Again, also remember, which I think is very important, is this can only be done in a certain area. So it can only be done within 1 mile radius of a hamlet center.
And you have to have 2 acres, which are 2 very big.
I mean-
And the reason for that is because we want the walkability. We want people who, to be able to afford these units, people who maybe work in the hamlet centers can walk to work instead of getting on the road, walking to their jobs. I mean, that's the whole point here is, and then be able to afford something, either be able to afford an apartment or be able to afford a single family dwelling unit within.
I like the proposal. I just want to know a little bit. I want to get drill down on the process a bit more of how this works. Because when Christine was here and we were talking about the overlays, she had kind of like, helped you both actually discussed what the process would be like of somebody coming to the town. Who are they going to first? How would that process work out with the board and the planning board, if you don't mind?
Right now, any of these floating zones are technically zone changes because they exist in the abstract until you land them, right? So they are just concepts until you take one and apply it. And to take it and apply it is a zone change. No doubt about it. You
And can you
can't
just explain
land a floating zone without a zone.
What's
So
required for that?
zoning changes happen in a two-step process under 330-185. The first is an elect to consider process, where there's a work session. We just had one, again, just to reiterate, because there was new people on the board with the one up in Epley. They pitch their proposal. You ask them if they've gone to the community, get community input. People write you letters or call you and tell you their thoughts on it. Sometimes the board, it's certain ones have been controversial where they've actually had a public hearing before you've even considered it. So that has happened over the years. You don't have to do it that way. But then you make a decision. Yes, we're going to consider it. We're going to move forward. Because that way this person isn't doing the time and expense, carrying the costs, making surveys, doing all the things necessary. If in the back of your mind you're like, no way, I'm not.
How is
So you
that
get to
saving
tell them
time,
upfront.
like for the Easterner? So
It
it
doesn't
seems like
save
it's
time.
the same
It
process.
is the same process.
That's what I'm not getting.
So
So just keep in mind, the difference, she's talking about two different things here, all right? So if you're going to do the affordable housing overlay, this is the process. Next, Janice, would you explain for them the process for what we're sitting here talking about,
Yes.
which would be just to change the code? So just listen to Janice lay out the two different processes for you, and then you're going to see the difference in the time and the work that has to go into it.
Oh, I thought what you were saying was what you were proposing, and I didn't.
No,
that
just
seems
listen
to
to
be the
Janice
direction
between
we're
the-
going in, which is why
Just
we.
me.
Okay.
Just
No,
me.
I'm just saying if you do this, and I'm not saying it's wrong, or I'm not saying we can't. We could figure out maybe a way to shorten this,
We just have
make
to
it a little
fine-tune it.
easier.
Continue the process,
So
and
the
then that way we
process-
So
can.
this is the zone change process. This
Yes.
would be landing the floating zone going this route,
Yes.
all right?
And that would be any number of these. You could do MF44, PRD, senior, or the AHOD. They're all floating zones and you're applying them. They all have different standards that vary. And I'm suggesting that in this AHOD is the one that we could develop more specific standards so that if you meet it, maybe it goes quicker than all these other ones, right? But it is still a zone change. You could exempt it out and say AHOD is reserved for when we're funding a project through CHF, and here's the process. But right now it follows the same process as any other. So that's what I'm suggesting. So it's a two-step, elect to consider, then you say, let's say, yes, you want to consider it. Then we get a formal application, and then we go on from there. We initiate SECRA, we
With the
do
planning
all-
board.
No, with you.
Okay.
This is all your realm. After it all happens and they get a zone change, they go to the planning board and start all over again. So
at
this
that-
is a very lengthy process.
So after the elect to consider, which would require first a work session before you, and you, say you elect to consider it, the next step is to set a public hearing, right? For the.
No, then they just elect to consider. Then once we get a
Make an
formal and
application.
complete
Application, right.
application, then we schedule.
Then you
public
schedule
But
a
you have to go
public
through
hearing.
the secret process.
But right, they have to go through the secret process first. So this is all under if you choose to go through the AHOD scenario, right? After that, when we would do a joint public hearing, as we were talking about.
Yes, we could streamline this
With
maybe and
the
do a joint
the
hearing.
change of zone to the AHOD plus
Fun.
the funding with CHF funds. Okay, you would hear the public hearing. If you're all in agreement, at that time you would adopt the authorization for the funding and for the zone change at the same time.
Yeah.
So in your best estimate, what is your time frame for that to happen?
6 months to a year.
It just sounds like what the process is now.
It is.
It is.
Well, then what is the new process you're proposing?
Okay, so now,
That's what
now
I
let's go
don't
through
hear
that. That's
I'm
okay.
sorry,
So now
Janice,
let's
I
go through
just-
that. So
No,
that,
but
I
you
don't
asked me to
process-
go through what is our existing process. So
No,
that's
I
what we're
think
trying
he's
to say.
asking, what are you
Hold
proposing that
on.
would shorten that?
hold on,
and
so that
change it?
process would take about a year, okay? Now let's go through the process that we're proposing, which is changing one section of the code. Janice, we're talking about section 33162? Is that,
Yeah.
okay.
Well,
So-
that
adding
was.
it.
Yep, okay, so we're proposing changing that code section for small, affordable housing development. That's what we're talking about here. So it would be properties of, I would say, at least 1.5 acres, you're saying 2, but we could come to that. 10 units per acre, must be located within 1 mile of a hamlet center, must be affordable in perpetuity, and no development could be more than 20 units. Regardless of the size of the property, 5 acres, 20 units under this section, because we're only considering 20 units.
So,
But that section, I'm sorry to interrupt, is under the planning board. So we also said here today, which we only have 2 ways, zone change or planning board. But your suggestion was maybe we pull it away from the planning board and bring it to you, not as a zone change, but as a conditional use.
Yes, but let's just go through that scenario with them. So we would go, in order to change this section of the code, we would have a public hearing, because it's a code change, right? So public would be able to come in and voice, their objections or their, if they're, for this code change, all right? So at that time, we would then maybe, make some changes, amendments to it at that time. But if you adopt the code based upon what we're proposing here, now that code exists. And when an application comes in for funding, you're gonna hear it under that CHF, for CHF. And if you say, okay, this is, a 1.5 acre parcel or a 2 acre parcel.
That's the criteria.
I don't like the fact that you're gonna put 20 units on a 2 acre parcel. I want less. You can then say, as this board, because this is before you, can say, we're not going to give you that CHF funding unless you reduce the number of units to 10. You're gonna have that ability. Once you guys agree to the funding, the next step is, under this provision, they go straight to planning.
Mm-hmm.
So that eliminates that year time that we're talking about if this board wants to consider it under the AHOD.
And what can planning do? They can't change the number of units that we've already
They're only
decided
getting,
upon.
that's right, because we would have the funding subject to 10 units.
But what if their funding isn't from us?
Right. Now that's different.
Then that's different. That's where we're back to that.
Then
So
they
we're
can go
kind
for
of going back.
20.
Yeah, but I'm saying to you
What if it's
that
mixed?
any project with this small number of units is going to require outside funding. Now, let me just tell you that Suffolk County funding is probably not gonna ever apply out here, because we know Suffolk County, the maximum sales price, they just raised it, right, to $425. So, that, it's just not gonna happen, So no developer is ever going to be able to get Suffolk County funding to do the projects this small in size.
And I'll also say is one who's just submitted several applications to the state and the county. They're not funding unless you have zoning.
I think you're better
You're not
off with that
funding anything.
AHOD idea, but
Me too.
streamline it.
I think so.
Why, but that's what I mean. Why can't we do the AHOD as a tool for this board in conjunction with
It's
CHF?
just gonna take a long time.
No. Well, if we do it and we grant it with the finance.
Funding, yeah.
Can, and you can make your own path. It doesn't have to follow the path of all these other ones because you're funding it. Put
But
it that
it's-
way.
it's still
I'm
gonna
saying you're
take a
not,
year.
you're gonna land it, but maybe you don't have a 2-step elect to consider because
But
who are you
everything takes a
considering?
year.
You're considering, this is a town
Yeah,
project.
but you still have to follow the same authorization for that, Cindy. So you're still gonna have to have a work session. You're still gonna have to have the application. You still have to have the person go through SECRA ahead of time.
We would want to do that for all the funding too, I would think.
I think.
Why would we want to fund a project unless it's been through SECRA and we know it's a good project and the community's behind it?
But it's gonna go through SECRA during the planning process.
Yeah, I mean, it has to go through secret either way, so you're gonna have a certain amount of time. It's gonna be 6 to 9 months.
Undertake or approve. So
Regardless.
you are funding and you are technically undertaking it if it is your agent who's doing it. So-
I personally feel like if we're funding these projects, they should go through
I
SECRA and
think
they
you
should
just
have
could
community
cut out
support.
the elect to consider component
Yes.
because you
Yeah,
don't
you can do
have a
that, yeah.
typical applicant in
Right.
these scenarios. These are your town
Right,
projects.
right.
So that may cut
Yeah,
out.
if we're
Yeah.
funding it, we don't need to,
So you
should
don't
we
need to-
consider it?
Yeah.
We're off
Of
course.
course, so that's what I'm saying, like, I think you can,
And
we
makes no
can,
sense.
Yeah,
it
that-
doesn't make sense.
that'll help a
That's
little bit.
We're not wanting to fund these projects unless they've
Right.
held water with
Yeah.
the community, so.
That would help a little bit to cut
We
that.
can go back to the drawing board.
Yeah.
We can create a process that's quicker with your permission, that you have discretion but don't forget, anybody else, who's in these other zones are not 20 units or less. They're coming in for the regular.
Yeah, and then we can,
Whatever they
then
wanna
the
ask for.
planning can say, no, you can only have 15 or
Okay,
36.
so we
not
can
100.
go back, forget the special exception for now, and let's look at how to streamline and make so that you go funding, AHOD, done, go to planning, and they figure out and then you have parameters.
What do they figure out? Just the layout?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the layout, the streetscape, the street
Because on the other,
trees,
on the flip side of this, I
architectural
do think if you have an expedited process combined with funding, right? I would think that's gonna drive a lot more people to do these smaller scale projects versus going through the huge process of trying to get a big complex done.
Okay, so we'll work on that. So thank you for helping us think this through. We never know, what you want to do exactly until we
Me
come
neither.
here. So, excuse the confusion, but
No,
I
that's
think
good to
it's a
talk
good
it
thing to
It was a good
understand
discussion.
that we want to create an expedited process combined with the funding, land it, know the parameters. So you're seeing a site plan and you're saying, makes sense, this is fine. So it's not, don't have to go to a zoning board. There's no
Right.
variances.
Mhm.
You're gonna be like, this is it.
Right.
And under the AHOD, you can do that. Just to be clear. You
That
don't
makes
have to
sense. The
follow
whole-
R40, whatever. You're gonna follow whatever you want in the AHOD that makes sense for that project.
Yeah.
I agree with that, because I think in the whole realm of things, the whole affordable housing initiative, it's really our responsibility. We're the ones that have been putting it forward, we're the ones that have been trying like hell to get it done. So we should take the responsibility, we hear the feedback, we get the positive and negative. So we should have more control, I think, and this will give it to us.
But can I just ask clarification from council? When we've considered zone changes, I thought it was advised that public opinion shouldn't be what directs our decision making.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's always.
Like it's
you
always it's
consider the
always from a
input, right?
planning or environmental
Sure.
or
Well, right.
societal impact standpoint.
Right.
You want to address the
Yeah, you always have
community.
community input, right? You always consider civic association input
But-
and how that is. Sometimes you learn from them, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not so good, but yeah.
point in way, actually, being the character of the community has to be factored in.
No, I know.
I think one of the other considerations is when you're at the AHOD stage, when you're considering the floating zone, to approve the floating zone, to make sure that you have some sort of plan for health department in place at the time, so the board knows it. So you don't want to go through this whole thing and then all of a sudden, well,
No one's
you don't
presenting
meet
an
that city.
application before you without first speaking with the health
Yeah,
department. to
just make sure you
it's-
have a health department plan,
That's
because
usually the
all
first
these,
step.
all these are gonna need health
Don't
department.
go anywhere else but
Right,
first.
yeah.
You would think.
Keep it really small, then this development rights comes into play.
All right, we could
And
do it,
you're
yeah.
kind of using up your development rights on like these small accessory apartments instead of using them where they belong in like a housing development that's like 10 units or
Yeah.
20 units. or
Yeah, I
something
would like to
that.
see provisions about getting health department approvals actually, and
You'll get
Plus, you
memos.
know what it
I
is.
want it in the. I
You
want
want
it
to
in
have
the
a design,
legislation.
what, are you going to do a Chrome, are you going to do a batch system, you're going to do a TDR, you're going to have an SDP, whatever. You know,
Well,
so you
not
have-
Some people have
You're not-
around it.
Most likely.
Right.
So, okay, so we have good direction. I would just say it's social, economic, and environmental considerations. So the economic consideration is you have people like begging you to do something about affordable housing. So, and then the social, and we've proven like Sandy Hollow was such a circumstance where people were so angry, and now they say, how can you do more of
They
these?
love it. Yeah.
So,
The neighbor who sued us is
come
selling his
around,
property.
and I'm not
That's how
saying
good
I want to
things are.
inundate anyone, but over
Yeah.
time you come to realize, and then they're prized and considered to be really great.
That's why
So,
it's proper, that's why it's very important us to do it in a correct way, because if we do one lousy one, you want to be members that one lousy one.
Well, and in part, how you designed, you were instrumental in the design of the Sandy Hollow, and that's so lovely, and fits right in with the community.
so we know how to do it, we just need a pathway to be able to do it. So that's
Good, I think we have good direction. Thank
Yeah.
you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for
It's
bringing
always
this
good
in.
to get everyone together and talk it out.
Thank you.
Thanks, Claire. Curtis for
Thank you.
coming in.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dennis.
All right, so that brings us to the supervisor and town council member liaison updates. I think we started this one last time, so you ready for Cindy, or do you want us to start with
Yeah, I
Rick?
had Hampton Bay CAC last night. We went over some community concerns. We discussed some.
Hampton Bay CAC is the same night as the Franca CAC?
Yeah,
Huh,
Franco
okay.
meeting.
We split up last night.
So we kind of try to come up with times that work for the committees. So it's generally not always the best for our schedules, even though we're co-liaisons. But we went over some community concerns. They have some concerns about people just not paying attention to stop signs, which is a town-wide problem. I think it comes also with people using these navigation apps and just driving where they're told to drive without paying attention to what's on their path. But we were discussing the sidewalks that Highway Department is currently doing. They are currently repaving in front of the school, which is great. They're gonna have a new crosswalk installed before the start of school. They are adding a sidewalk, you said, Rick, from
From-
Foster to Lynn
On Shinnecock.
on
to Lynn,
Shinnecock.
yeah.
And they're also adding one on Wakeman to Bay Avenue East. Which everyone was kind of they were happy about that. And, it was a reminder to them that, we tend to focus on the negative things going on in the community, and they do have a lot of positive things going on as well. It's been a very busy summer. They've had a lot of business downtown, and the restaurants have been doing really, really well. They're experiencing definitely some yeah, but also I think a lot of their problems too that we discussed last night will be helped with additional foot traffic and some new businesses downtown, and that's all part of what we're trying to do. So
Good,
On that
thank you
note,
for going.
the highway department's doing a great job on the sidewalks. They've, Charlie has taken it upon himself to really, piecemeal the jobs instead of one long stretch. Take care of what's close to downtown. Take care of what's close to the school district. Along with the paving at the elementary school, there's a remarking they're doing. It's a little bit easier to get from sidewalk to crosswalk to school, and the crossing guard has a little more field of vision. All these things that he takes into consideration that hadn't been done in the past. So, Bill, give him our thanks, and doing very well on that.
Thank you.
to that point though, Rick, I did want to ask this board. I did ask about, and Highway's been very responsive to community concerns for the speed signs, and right now they've been moving around the speed trailer because we're out of signs. I did think that when we got those signs to begin with, they were going to be temporary installations and they were going to move around, but that doesn't seem to be happening. So
They
I don't know
could.
if there's a.
They could, but I think we need more of them though. I mean, I don't know if this board would be open to.
Oh, Flanders wants them. Hampton Bays wants them. East Quogue
See,
wants
they're
them.
popular.
Yeah, we put
Well,
one on Long Neck. It's
But the whole point is, once they're there for an extended period of time, people tend to start ignoring them. So that's why I thought we were going to move them. But if that's not the case, then we do definitely need to order more.
I think we should order some
the
more.
only time they're ever moved, I think, is when a neighbor complains that it's in his window,
Yeah.
and blah blah blah. So we definitely need more.
Actually, they did move a few.
They did move. They did rotate a few,
Right.
but I do think long term, until we get some of this traffic management under control, and I know that the police is working with the my office, and I think the supervisor's office. We're talking about looking at some AI technology that can help equip the police with very targeted enforcement of speed and volume on certain roads. I think those speed monitors are nice, and I think it's a good way to remind people, slow down. I think especially when they flash to slow down, it's a nice touch to remind folks to pay attention to the roads.
Actually, yesterday when I was driving out with Mark in the morning, that got brought up, and I said that we would meet in the next couple of weeks with Michael and about moving some more around, because some of them, like you say, are getting stale, and just rotate a couple.
Yeah.
That would be good.
He said after all the hurricanes go by.
Yeah.
So
Thank you, Cindy.
here you go.
Yep.
So last night I was invited to attend the Gabreski RAB Remediation Advisory Board. The the National Guard was there, and members of the community. Mayor Truhold is the co-chair with Colonel Weinberger, and just a discussion on some of the remediation and Superfund cleanup that's going on in and around Gabreski Airport. That's been ongoing, and there's a lot of work that's been done over the past couple of years, and a lot of positive progress has been made. I want to thank actually Bob Moser for sending us and my office just a quick update on that, because we didn't know of some of those updates, so it was nice to hear about them.
We weren't informed about that, so I'm glad you went and got the update.
Yeah, and I also attended a community meeting with the Southampton Association. Gave an update on some of the some of the legislative efforts that we've made. Some of the key recommendations of the traffic mitigation report. Some of the things that we've taken action on already, and what's left to do as well. They're very happy to hear some of those things, and they obviously know there are still a lot of challenges ahead. So they're looking forward to being a partner with the town on a number of initiatives. And I just want to give a shout out to Thomas Vermeulen. He was our summer intern in CRC, did a nice job this summer, and we thank him for his work.
Oh, good, very good. Yeah, we had some nice interns this summer. Thank you. Well, I met with some people from Head Start earlier this week, Yvonne, Annette, and Christina Foster. And just to give you an update, I mean, of course, they were thrilled to get the funding from New York State, and they want to build, they have their own parcel, and they want to construct the new building. And they said the money they got from the state would be enough for the building itself, and they're waiting on a grant from Senator Schumer's office for the rest of it. But, they have the concern about what are they going to do this year, with the school season starting very soon. And they said there's a property up in Riverhead by the Toys R Us, where it used to be Toys R Us. This doctor's office is up there, and there are 3 units for rent. And so they would like to get those, but there's some right of first refusal to the doctors, and they're waiting. So, we discussed in the meantime, maybe they could rent some trailers. And I thought we would be open to allowing them to put the trailers on the property that we had previously had their building on. I told them we would, talk about it as a board. I didn't think there would be an issue, as long as they said they had funds for any kind of site plan prep if we needed to do anything to accommodate the trailers, or like a septic.
The property has to still finish being cleaned up.
Yeah, it has to get cleaned up. And they wanted to know if they could put a sign at the prior location referencing the new location. I thought that's pretty reasonable to ask. So anyway, we're just, they're going to look into that and keep the communication open. They said they only have about 35 students right now, and they're trying to get more students, but, on the other hand, where are they going to go? So I don't know if anybody else has had any conversations with them or thoughts about what to.
35, it doesn't matter if there's 2 kids or 35 or 40, every kid's important.
Oh, yeah, sure. Just need a place, so maybe the trailer idea would work for them. They said they thought that the West Hampton Elementary School was retiring a couple of trailers, but then they said that didn't come to fruition. So, anyway, if anybody else has any other thoughts on it, but we're fine with the sign, right? That's not a problem. And, okay, well, that's all. I'm working on the budget, too. Bill?
Yesterday, had the first meeting with different departments, highway, parks, Bay Constables, the trustees, the fire marshal. He's going to be there at the next meeting. To Tatiana from upstairs, and Jen, our grant writer, try to get a grant for a multiple use landing craft for rescue and maintenance of the town and the villages, and also to get a couple of equipment for the highway, which other departments can use, so they don't have to rent when they need something, which is good. But I got there early, so Mark's the superintendent of highways, assistant superintendent of highway. He gave me a tour of Hampton Bays. We drove my truck, so they didn't know who he was. And, you know, being a trustee and being town board for the last couple of years, you see all outside vendors when they fix something or they do something for the town. And some of them do really good job and some do really crappy jobs. And you could go, we should never use them again. But I must say, Long Island Mason, who's doing the sidewalks in Hampton Bays, they're very courtesy. They, you know, he says, I go, how come this one's not done? He says, oh, the lady's coming home from the hospital in the next couple of days, so they didn't want to block the driveway. They want to make it smooth. And he showed me, you know, eventually he's going to be, like Rick said, up to Pond Corp. You know, the goal this year to go from Bay Avenue to Pond Corp with the sidewalks, and you know, the future goal is to go all the way up to the village on Pond Corp. Same thing on Wakeman, same thing in front of the Penny Pond Park, alias the Bel Air. And same thing on Springville. He showed me they were striping in front of the school. They showed me where he had them make it wider. So when the kids get dropped off, there's more room for the kids to get out. The car's completely off the road, which should have been done years ago, which no one thought of it. You know, I just want to, you know, give a big shout out to Long Island Mason again, and you know, and Mark and the whole highway department. And also a few weeks back, I had a call from a couple of people on Fresh Pond Road, Lane, and North Sea. And I called Mark up, and we actually went down and looked at it. And he met with the neighbors on Fresh Pond Lane, and they sucked all the crap out of the dry well there. And actually, then he brought McLean back a few days later and talked, about the county, because it's close to the county road, and they decided that it needs 2 more drains on that road to help it. And he said he did not have the funding. He could do it, but he would have to take the funding from someone else's. I said, did you already promise them? He said, yes. I said, you can't do that. I said, see how the money goes. If we need to find money, we'll find the money from Dorothy upstairs. It's going to be hard, but we can do it. He called me the other day, and he said, we had some extra money from another job. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks, those new drains be put in on that
great.
street for that neighborhood.
Love that.
And again, the highway is really helping us and working with the town board to get things done for the people.
Yeah.
That's how it should be.
Very good. I agree.
That's
I
all
think
I
they're
got.
doing a great job. People appreciate it. They
Yes.
see it.
I'll add to that, Bill, that constituent actually reached out to me and he followed up and he said after the last rain, it was the first time in 10 years that road didn't flood,
Yeah.
so they were very
Yeah.
happy.
That's what people want. They want
What
their
people
roads
think.
paved and their rain to
And
drain.
actually, years ago, when I was a trustee, that was my area. I tried to get drains in there, and it was like, could not happen.
Well, now it's happening. So
Yeah.
we got a good team. Good, thank you.
Well, Charlie and Mark are great with highway, but remember that, you guys have added quite a bit to their budget and staffing and trucks and all that comes into play. It's amazing what happens when you have the materials to get things done.
Well, that's true, because we have to support them in order for them to
Absolutely.
be able to do their jobs.
It's a team effort.
It's definitely a team.
So a couple things. Last Friday was the Youth Bureau Summer Internship Graduation. I just mention it because, I've worked with kids a lot over the years. And some of these kids coming out, I swear they could sit here with us right now. They're very intelligent kids. They're hardworking. And I want to commend the Youth Bureau and especially all those interns for the great job they did this summer. Saturday, the Southampton Animal Shelter had their Shampooch fundraiser. So, you go get your car washed or your dog washed. I did walk around the shelter with the director and kind of get a lowdown on what the new kennels were going to look like and how everything was going to be. It's quite a big project. There's going to be a lot of demo involved. And, you have about 10 days left to foster. Otherwise, all the pets have to be shifted to another building, so.
They still have some, I know they have a lot of cats,
They
but
have
the
plenty.
dogs too.
Yeah, they have,
still
and
some.
rabbits, believe it or not.
Ah.
They have a ton of rabbits. So last night at Franca, we had Rachel Friedman, who is the Water Quality Outreach Specialist for the Peconic Estuary Partnership. She did a great job. She basically keyed on, the IA systems and how important they were and how the funding worked and all. So it was a great meeting. I was happy that Franca brought somebody like that into the public. And tonight, weather permitting, is the last concert in the park at Good Ground Park at 6 p.m. It's Soul Jam Review. It's a great concert.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. I went Saturday to the Southampton Fire Department Chicken and Ribs Barbecue, which they always do an amazing job. The food there is
Nice.
really great. They had 3 bands. It was a really nice event, so
I always want to go to that one.
it's a good one. You think about the people sitting, you paid $45 for this giant barbecue meal, and there's people sitting across it. Shippy's paying, I don't know what. But, they got the music too, so.
Yeah.
They give the Flanders Men's Club a run for their money, that's
Yeah,
for
that's
sure.
good.
Yeah.
All right, well, if nobody has any other comments, then I move to go to executive session for personnel, confidential legal advice, contracts, and acquisitions.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, everyone.